Hey guys, for this week's podcast, we're talking about something really fun because this week, thousands of people are headed to Greenville for Fall for Greenville. I love this event. When I first moved here 8 years ago. 8 years ago. Oh my gosh. I remember it was our very first weekend and my wife and I were like, let's just go downtown and see what the city of Greenville is like. And we didn't know that Fall for Greenville was going on. And so we go downtown and we see a million different bands. We see thousands of people eating such great food. It was so fantastic. And I immediately fell in love within a day of Greenville. And so that's what's going to be going on for thousands of people this weekend. Lots of people from out of town to check out the city that we all love. And so you, like me, may not know how this city got started and be surprised that it was not the greatest place to be not too many years ago, especially downtown. And no one knows that more than the mayor of Greenville himself, Mayor Knox White. So we were able to sit down with him and we talked to him about how he got into politics. He started as a city councilman in 1983. So we talked to him about what this town looked like when he took over. It was way, way different from what it is now. Oh, also, enjoy Fall for Greenville. It starts this Friday night, goes all weekend. We're going to have a Fox Carolina booth with some of your favorite people from Fox Carolina who would love to say hi to you, take pictures with you, sign autographs with you, and give you a high five and a hug as well. It is such a good time. It rocks. Parking is actually pretty darn good for the event that hosts hundreds of thousands of people, so make sure you come check it out. But in the meantime, enjoy this great interview with Mayor Knox White. And Mayor White, we're here in your beautiful office. I've actually never been in your office before.
Yeah, well, it's the best view in town.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was curious, I know Green Day is being celebrated tomorrow, 186th birthday for the city.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, and
right, yeah.
So I was curious, what would the founders say of the city, like Nathaniel Green, if you were to take a time machine and plop them on
Well, Vardra Macby would be the founder of the city, if anybody would be the founder of Greenville. And it's real interesting because, okay, who is Vardra Macby? He lives in 1830s, 1840s, right before the city. Well, actually died, I think, 1864, So he's the developer, in effect, who came here and laid out the streets that we know today as a Macby Avenue and Main Street, and he laid it all out and famously gave land to the churches, to the main churches, for the churches that are there today, Christ Church, First Pres, the Baptist site. But here's what's interesting, two things about Greenville in the 19th century when it starts is that it was founded by an entrepreneur. I mean, Vardra Macby was an entrepreneur. He owned about, 16 different businesses. He was a manufacturer. He was a real estate developer. But he was a serial entrepreneur, as we would call it today. So it was always a city of commerce and industry and entrepreneurship, because that's who he was, and it became that after he left, too. The second thing about it is, that if you visited Greenville in the 19th century, and you appeared on Main Street and said, "Well, show me your city," the first place they would take you would be Reedy River Falls. In the 19th century, in 1900, 1910, and so that's interesting too. Vardra Macby would come here and go down to Falls Park, and he would be happy to see it, but he wouldn't be surprised. He would expect to see it be the centerpiece of the city. And that's what we set about to do around the year 2000 when we took down the bridge and created Falls Park. The idea was we're going to create what was once the centerpiece of the city would once again be the centerpiece of the city, and that's exactly what's happened.
I moved here 8 years ago, and so for me, walking downtown to bringing my family and friends who come to visit from out of state to take them to Falls Park, I can't imagine it not being there.
Yeah, right.
I really can't. And as I was told, or as I've read, there was some controversy in it being built in the first place, wasn't there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
Right.
A lot. Yeah, well, see, the river had become polluted in the mid 20th century, 1940s, 50s, 60s. The river's polluted like it is in most American cities, so people moved away from the river. So everything around the river, the West End, became dilapidated. It was just warehouses and a place you didn't go. And then in 1960, they put a 4-lane highway bridge on top of the waterfall, which seems amazing, but again, at that point, in 1960, the waterfall itself was a place you didn't go. It smelled bad. It was not attractive. So by the time we started talking about removing the bridge and creating Falls Park, the Camperdown Bridge, the 4-lane highway, had been on top of the waterfall for 40 years. Now, 40 years, that's more than a generation. So when we began the public discussion and debate about the wisdom of removing the bridge, most people who lived in Greenville all their lives had never seen the waterfall. And that's the amazing thing about the whole political controversy, is that it was a hard sell because we were going to spend about $13 million to create a beautiful park around a waterfall most people haven't seen. So it was just a very strange debate, and it was very tough. And most people, because they hadn't seen the waterfall, didn't see the value to it. The controversy really didn't go away until the park opened in 2003, and then it disappeared, and the rest is history. Then we could build the baseball stadium down there and create Falls Park, but it just turned Greenville upside down. But that's what I say. The funny thing about it is, if Falls Park is now the centerpiece of Greenville, it once was that back before the river became polluted in 1910, 1912, and on.
And as you've told me before, Floor Field. And again, this was before I moved here. There was controversy about that being built.
There was controversy on that. See, we had a
Right.
just like people said, we had a perfectly good bridge. Keep it in place. People also said we had a perfectly good baseball stadium, which was on Malden Road near Interstate 85. And in truth, it was a very basic facility. It looked like a high school baseball facility, basically, nothing to it. But most people felt, sensibly enough, I guess, that we should just fix it up and renovate it and keep it out there. The entire city council felt strongly about this one, even if the public wasn't quite there yet, that we'd been to other cities and we saw what a downtown stadium looked like, that they just lasted longer. There's more going on. You could have restaurants and shops surrounding it. You could use it as a economic redevelopment tool if done right. And we went up to Greensboro, North Carolina, and to Memphis, Tennessee, to see their mixed-use urban baseball stadiums, and they both were great. And I remember visiting the one in Greensboro, and again, prevailing opinion in Greenville was we should just simply renovate the one on Malden Road. And why would you put a baseball stadium downtown? What about the traffic? What about this? What about that? But I went to the stadium in Greensboro, and I remember sitting out there that night with the mayor of Greensboro and looking around and just thinking to myself, well, people in Greenville just haven't seen this. They haven't experienced what a really great baseball stadium looks like and feels like from the minute you walk in. So we had this conviction that, hey, this is going to be good. We had bought some property down at the far end of West End. Falls Park had just opened, so the West End had not developed at all yet. And the property was an old abandoned lumber yard, it was a miracle that it was there. That it was just big enough for a baseball stadium, and I mean just big enough that the railroad tracks along the edge means it just fits. Minor league baseball actually has standards. You can't just build one. There's standards you have to meet, and it just barely met the standards. And so we had the spot, but yeah, it was a pretty rough area at that time, and a lot of people couldn't imagine that it would be it'd just be the worst place in the world to put one.
Right. People I talk to, they say going to the West End, you just didn't go there 15, 20 years ago. And then I think my wife and I got married at the Zen at the West End, so it's incredible to think about.
There was a business across the street from the baseball stadium that had been there for many years before the baseball stadium, and everybody who worked for that business was required to carry a gun until about 6-7 years ago. That's a story they told me. And so the baseball stadium and Falls Park together, totally turned that area upside down and made it the beautiful area it is today.
And I know you're a Greenville native, and so you're kind of biased, but what did you love about the city growing up before you became mayor?
A couple things, two things. One is this city's always had a certain ambition about it. We always had good community leadership of people who saw the city as being bigger and better than it really was, frankly, and had ambition about what Greenville should be. That it was a city of commerce, that it was a city that was entrepreneurial, that it was a city that was good at planning and taking the next step. So we always had that, and I always admired those people like Buck Mickle and so many others. So I had that going for it. And then second, I always had a great affection for the downtown area. I did most of my summer jobs growing up as a teenager were downtown. In fact, by the way, back then you could take the bus. I'd be somebody. I wasn't old enough to drive, so I would take the bus downtown. They went all over back then. It was great, and my summer jobs were always on Main Street. So when I walk around Main Street today, I can remember what it was like in 1967, 1970, and I knew where everything was. And
Yeah. And there was controversy on building on Main Street, too, right, with residents who were there. And you had to make some pretty drastic moves.
yeah, that was the era of Max Heller and the early redevelopment efforts, and he had a really good city council, too. They brought the Hyatt in, and then they narrowed the Main Street. And as one of the council members would tell me later, because I was talking to her about how they took that big step to narrow this Main Street from 4 to 2 lanes and put in the trees. And she very, in my mind, famously said to me, yeah, but you have to remember, there was no one left to complain. And there was a truth to that. It was downtown was devastated. The malls had opened, and there really was nothing downtown. But that was a great moment in time, though. They were able to grab that moment and put those infrastructure changes in that made all the difference. The trees that we see today, and that set the tone for downtown. And I kind of look at downtown redevelopment as being basically 2 big phases. One is the effort with the Hyatt and the trees, and then later our efforts, more recent times, with the river and the reclaiming of the Reedy River.
When I first moved here from Colorado, I didn't know a lot about Greenville. And when I came here for my interview, I went from the airport to the hotel on Pelham Road, to a station on Pelham Road, back to the airport. And so the year that Greenville initiative wasn't going on then. And so honestly, there wasn't too much information about the city 8-9 years ago, as much as there is now. And so when my wife and I moved here for the very first weekend, we didn't know what was going on because the chaos of moving across the country. Fall For Greenville was going on. And we went downtown just to see what it was like. And then we pull up to Main Street and we just see this incredible evening with thousands and thousands of people. So to hear that Main Street at some point was pretty desolate is fascinating to me. Fascinating.
But it didn't happen all at once.
Right.
The trees were put in, the hotel, and then the Peace Center in around 1980, 88. Those were important, but there was kind of like a gap period. So they had trees and the Peace Center and the Hyatt, but there was nothing under the trees. It would take another effort to put vibrancy on the street. So I would say that starts with condominiums in downtown, the early residential we had, the apartments and condos, just a few units here and there, because most people couldn't imagine living in downtown Greenville. Those early units we had to work it, we had to make it happen, if you will, had to encourage and cajole people to do it. The Poinsett Hotel reopening was huge because it sat vacant for 20 years,
right.
Pigeons and homeless people, right on Main Street though, but the whole area around the Poinsett Hotel was vacant. This is I'm talking 1998, 99.
1998.
Yeah. So there's kind of so you have the Hyatt, and you had development around the Hyatt, and that was great, and it's kind of set a tempo and a style, but it's just stayed around the Hyatt. Yanking it down here around 99, 2000 was huge, and that let us then after we did that then let us take the next step, which was heading to the river. I mean, things kind of fell in line that way. Then after the river, up the street further into West End with the baseball stadium. So each of these projects sort of made development happen around them, but they were all very strategic, and they were all kind of things that didn't have to happen. The wheels could have come off on any number of them, and we never would have done it. I mean, but it changed everything about downtown.
And you have some upcoming projects that you want to work on. Of course, the beautiful hotel that's planned to be built around Falls Park. Are things getting easier when it comes to you unleashing a new project that you want to make?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd be the first. I live in an alternative universe. It used to be so hard to get retail to come downtown. Well, now we have retailers who knock on our door. Of course, the residential, now we have so much residential, people talk about we have too many apartments or condos, and just 10 years ago, we didn't have any to speak of. So we've gone from zero. A lot of pent-up demand now being met. So the world's kind of flipped upside down. And, of course, everything we're doing at the river just keeps on going. Our next big project is to go up the river. And that's kind of how I feel about it, that our job now is to be good at planning, continue to focus on planning, to really keep focused on making downtown a livable and people-focused place. It's the feeling you have when you're walking on Main Street. That's what we're trying to preserve. Even though the city is growing, we have new development and everything coming. We have a game plan to maintain the sort of village atmosphere as you walk along the street, even as the city gets bigger. And that's something most American cities have not been able to balance. We're going to do that. And the other part is green space. We're expanding the green space along the river. We're working on a new 60-acre park That's our next big project along the river where the Croc Center is and the Whitbury School and the Swamp Rabbit Trail. So we're going to keep on building more green space, more parks, and the river becomes the touchstone that becomes what we're known for. So we're going to keep focusing on the river and make it even better, and that'll be good for Greenville's future livability as we grow.
And what were your thoughts when you first heard about the ideas for the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which has almost turned areas around it into like beachfront property in a way? I mean, it's a place of recreation that wasn't there whatsoever before.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership with Greenville County, with the county government, because the county government's taken the lead on the Swamp Rabbit, and even though sections of it are in the city. We did, as a city, we started our own Greenway program, trails, many years before the Swamp Rabbit, bike and walking trails through Cleveland Park, and then we went up the river to the city line, but then that stops just a few quarter mile from downtown, so it didn't go anywhere. It was only when the county got on board and built the Swamp Rabbit that we really have a system. But we're going to be working with them and expanding the system. There's going to be a new leg of the Swamp Rabbit down down Lawrence Road. From Washington Street, from Cleveland Park and the zoo, it'll go up Lawrence Road and connect over to Hollingsworth, Verde, and Icar. And that's going to happen in 2018. That'll all be done in 2018. So we'll have a whole new section of the Swamp Rabbit. And just like you say, it's going to create new beachfront property.
Yeah.
I would say in this case, Lawrence Road, of all places.
Wonderful. That's good to hear. I like riding my bike on the Swamp Road. So what's next for Greenville? I know you mentioned the park already, but there's cranes everywhere. There's cranes all over the place, building new apartment complexes and new condos and new businesses. It's growing. And what's the process like when it comes to a new place wanting to move here? You guys seem pretty strict on what comes to downtown Greenville.
We try to be. I think our focus, everything you said is true. We got a lot of development here, apartments, condos, cranes in the sky, and it makes everybody a little nervous. It makes us a little nervous. The only thing I think I would really emphasize is that what we do at City Hall that does make us different is that that's what we focus on. We focus on livability, quality of life, keeping green in Greenville. That's what we focus on. And so right now we're riding a fast-moving horse. It's driven by the local economy being so strong with all the new manufacturers in. That's kind of the wind beneath the sail. So what we see ourselves focusing on is the livability. And it's not to say it's easy. It's not to say we get it right all the time, because sometimes we miss things because things happen so fast. But that's what we focus on. So we're going to be focused on new parks, new green space, the Swamp Rabbit Trail, anything that's kind of an indicator of livability, and just kind of maintaining the growth at the highest level quality we can. We have design review standards, architectural standards. Again, they don't always get it right. We've seen some development come out that we're not too happy with. But we do have standards, and we do tell people no. More often than people realize, we tell people no, we're not going to do this or that. But that's kind of our chore, and it will never end. I mean, we're going to, as long as Greenville's growing, we're going to have to keep at this.
As I walked in here, there was some breaking news about the communications director in the White House, and you can answer this if you want to. But what could U.S. Congress and Washington, D.C. as a whole, and the White House, what could they learn from the office here in City Hall?
Well, that comes up a lot with commentators around the country, because you see successful cities all over America right now. We're all struggling with different issues, transportation being one, gentrification, or just the whole affordability of housing. That's the other side of growth and success, is that things become more expensive. So we're now focused on the livability factors and trying to figure out a formula to at least to encourage more affordability. All cities are. Okay, we're doing all these things, and I mean, just having a good sense of planning, that we try to plan the best we can. We have public-private partnerships. We work with people. So that's kind of the answer to your question, is that we don't let a lot of politics get in the way. We're not ideologically driven. We're just focused on problem solving and trying to make things better, and that's what we do. So what goes on in D.C. and other places is pretty foreign to what we do here. It's not the way we do business.
I don't hear a lot of yelling going on.
There isn't.
I haven't heard any.
Yeah, there's not. I'm really fortunate to have a city council that we're kind of on the same script and same sheet of paper. And it's about planning, and it's about partnerships. It's about trying to create a good livable community, and we try not to get bogged down in a lot of issues that we can't control anyway. We just kind of focus on what our business is.
Right. All right. So back to my first question: what do founding fathers say? 186 years later, if they landed here on Main Street, saw everything that's going on, would they be happy?
I think they'd be really happy that you've kept the green in Greenville. That Greenville is still a very green place. We focus on that, and outsiders come here, and that's one of the first things they say. Wow, this place is amazingly green and walkable. The walkability, the livability, I think they'd be proud of that. And the second thing would be, again, economically it's been a success. The whole region, not just the city of Greenville, but the whole region is a place of opportunity. People can come here and find jobs and work and bring ideas here and opportunities here. And that's the best thing you can say about a community is, do you have opportunity? Is there a place for me to come and grow into something bigger and better? And we get a lot of great feedback from people who say, that's a great thing about Greenville. It really is a place like that.
What I've noticed, too, what I talk with my wife about in regards to this place that we live, is it works well for kids. We have a 4-year-old. She has a blast. It's great for people in college. It's great for young couples. It's great for retirees. It's good for middle-aged folks. It's good for everybody, it seems like.
I agree. We hear the same thing, and that's the magic formula is to keep that going. We have a lot of retirees moving here. Downtown and beyond, and then young families that find opportunity here. And I was just telling somebody this afternoon, we were talking about our new trolley system downtown. It's where we have our trolley system, free trolleys. It's great for kids who don't have driver's licenses yet. They can get on a trolley, but the really cool thing is they come downtown. It's safe. It's a great place for people to be of all ages, and that's what happens on the weekends. You come here on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and it's full of people in every age bracket you just mentioned. They find a comfortable niche in downtown Greenville.
Right. You've been mayor for 22 years or so. What are you most proud about, would you say?
Most proud about, we've worked hard. I've worked hard. Everybody here has worked hard to make City Hall open and accessible. Even starting, if you come into, people probably don't come to City Hall often, but if you come in here, you'll notice our lobby is not an austere government lobby. It's a welcome center. We have people there it's a welcome center with visitor guides and all that, and music playing, and it's just a whole different. That's what we're trying to reflect, is that a very open government. We have a lot of neighborhood associations where people can participate if they choose to in making decisions for their neighborhoods, and that's been a focus. I'm really proud of that. And then second, I think, again, we put the emphasis on livability and quality of life, and I think that shows the walkable city that we're trying to create. We set out to do this many years ago, and I just can't be more excited about how far we've come.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
That was fantastic.
Big thanks to Mayor Knox White for sitting down with us, and thanks for listening to another episode of Joe's Super Awesome Podcast. There's hundreds of you so far that have downloaded it. We have almost 1,000 downloads, and we really just got this thing going and really got this thing started. So that's really exciting. Next week is going to be awesome. We're talking to a man from here in the Upstate known as the Rhino. It involves me, his television career, a bottle of wine, and a nice fancy Tuesday morning at Sobeys in downtown Greenville. So make sure you check out for that. They'll be airing, or uploaded, I guess I should say, because that's the terminology, I guess, for podcasts, on Tuesday. So make sure you listen to that. And please subscribe if you can. We are on Stitcher. We're on, of course, foxcarolina.com. We're on something known as iTunes. Have you heard of this? As well. So subscribe and make sure you follow us, and we'll let you know when the next episode lands. All right, guys. See ya. Until next time, take care.